Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast presented by the Six Pack Coverage Media Network. It's your host, Jeff Rowell, here with my co-host, Andrew Tanzi, coming at you again to break down some more NFL futures bets. Today, we are moving on to potentially the greatest division in the history of professional football, and I don't know if that's an exaggeration. Obviously, we have a lot of season to play, but the AFC West is shaping up to be one of the all-time divisions in football, so that's where we're at today. This is our second breakdown in the AFC. We already covered the whole NFC, so feel free to go back and listen to any of those podcasts if you would like to. And we'll go team by team here, give out our kind of preview on each team, any bets that we have in, anything that we're eyeing up, and find some value on the board. Rue, how we doing?
Good, man. Very, like you said, very exciting division here. Great quarterbacks, which obviously is what I think makes it probably the
Yeah.
greatest division ever. You're talking about Justin Herbert as the third best quarterback in this division. So, pretty exciting to see how this is going to shape up. It definitely makes it harder to bet win total over bets, I think, just because of how competitive this division will end up being.
Yeah, for sure. I think the quarterback play is definitely the best in the league. And like you said, it's weird because you see some of these numbers like Mahomes and Andy Reid, 10.5. Like that seems
Yeah.
so low. But then you look at the schedule and the other teams in the division, it's so hard to find an over. It's just going to be a bloodbath. You could make a case for any of these teams to win the division. So
Yeah.
all right, ready to dive into the Kansas City Chiefs up first?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so they are the reigning AFC West champs. Their win total in the market right now is 10.5, around minus 110 on both sides to the over and the under, plus 170 to win the division, minus 200 to make the playoffs, and around 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. Off-season moves, they lost Tyreek Hill and Byron Pringle from the receiving corps, and then a couple offensive linemen, then Tyrann Mathieu and Anthony Hitchens lost on the defense. They did add Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling on offense, along with Ronald Jones in the backfield. Also added safety Justin Reed, and then a couple defenders in the draft, Trent McDuffie, quarterback, edge rusher George Karlaftis, and then a wide receiver from Western Michigan, Sky Moore. So a lot of moving parts here, but I think the main staples here, obviously Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. This will be the fifth season of Mahomes and Reid quarterback coach duo. So in their 4 seasons prior, 12-4, 12-4, 14-2, and then 12-5 last year, went over their win total easily in each of the first 3 seasons together. Last year it was kind of at 12 or 12.5. So depending on where you got it, they either went pushed or, half a win under. So, this is kind of what we were talking about off the top. It's kind of weird seeing a 10.5 for a team that's won 12 to 14 games in every year that they've had Reid and Mahomes there. So it's just kind of an interesting thing here with a potentially legendary coach quarterback combo set at 10.5, but I think it makes sense in this division. So where are you looking at with the Chiefs here? Do you have a play on the over, or is this a team that you might be fading this year?
So it's weird. It's like if you just watched last season and didn't have a record to put to it, you would think the Chiefs had a down season because it really wasn't a pretty season.
From
But
their
they still
standards, for sure.
Exactly. And they still won 12 games. So that's just kind of the standard they set as you were looking at last season. Oh, they didn't look great, but they still won 12 games.
Yeah.
And same goes with Mahomes. You looked at Mahomes during certain stretches of the season, you're like, there was some stretches where the offense couldn't score 20 points, but now you look at his stats, he finished fifth in QBR, he threw for 4,800 yards, 37 touchdowns. So when you look at that, you're like, if you're saying that's a down season from Pat Mahomes and you're sensing some regression back to the mean, the guy's looking at another 40 touchdown season, 5,000 yards. So I'm actually weirdly high on the Chiefs, and I didn't really expect to.
Interesting.
Especially with the loss of Tyreek Hill. Now, it didn't translate to an over bet just because of the schedule. Even outside of the division, they have some tough matchups, but it's definitely a team that I think if they get off to a little bit of a rougher start, maybe lose a couple of the first 2 games in that tough start, then maybe I'll be looking on some futures bets or some divisional bets on them. And same thing, targeting them on a week-to-week basis. So the one question mark with this Chiefs team that we're always concerned about is the defense. But the last 2 years, they've been bottom 10 in defensive DVOA, and they still won 14 and 12 games. So I think they've proven that even with a subpar defense, this team can get it done. And on the offensive side, the big loss is Tyreek Hill, but I'm not looking at this like a Devontae Adams situation with the Packers. I actually think they did a great job of replacing Tyreek Hill with multiple guys. So you have three guys that can stretch the field in Hardman, MVS, and Sky Moore. You have Juju, who's a great possession receiver, close to the line of scrimmage type of guy. And then you still have Kelsey there, who's a do-it-all type of guy, down the field, possession, third down guy. So
Yeah.
I really am not looking at this offense that like I think they're going to take a step back because of Tyreek Hill. If anything, I think they're going to have a better year than last year just because of the depth they now have at wide receiver and the different looks they can present with all these speed guys on the outside. So I'm actually weirdly high on this team, and I'll definitely be looking at them from a week to week basis. But like I said, the schedule is just brutal for them, so it makes it pretty tough to take an over 10.5. And even the divisional matchups, I still think they're the best team in the division, but that's not to say they're going to have a winning record in the division. All these games are going to be probably 4 points or less in spread.
Yeah.
They could go either way. So I'm high on the team, but no bets on them right now.
Yeah, I think I kind of have a similar feel in this one. You just to dive into the schedule a little bit more, like you mentioned, is the hardest schedule in the entire league based on the Vegas win totals right now. One of the only teams with 3 straight road games. I think later in the season, it's week 13 to 15. They have 3 straight on the road. And then to start the season, it's just brutal. So they go at Arizona, currently 3-point favorites, but still going to be a tough game. Then they have Chargers, Colts, Bucks, Raiders, Bills, Niners. So 6 straight playoff caliber teams to start the year. Obviously, it eases up a little bit, but like we said, like these front loaded schedules, this is really tough. And the Chiefs could win all those games. Like I don't think anybody's saying they can't go 6-0, but it's just tough when the schedule sets up like that. So I think I'm kind of like you. I like the team. I still like the offense. I think they're going to do really well, but the schedule makes it tough to make a case for the over 10.5. So it's a pass for me on the win total. Do you have any like supreme confidence in any of their wide receivers that they brought over that can like really take a big leap this year? Like, do you think we see like another 1,000-yard season from Juju, or is it just kind of like they have a lot of bodies, you don't know who's going to step up, but you feel like there's enough talent that someone will do it? Or is there someone in particular that you think can have a ton of success with Mahomes?
I actually really like Juju from a receptions perspective. His season total was in the 70s, I believe, 75
I
and a
haven't
half.
even
I
looked
want to
at
say
that.
around there. I really like him. And I have right now, I have my full list of prop spots I'm already looking for week one, and his receptions are on there. And I think the start of the season, we might get a conservative line with him just because there is the unknown of who's going to step up. And obviously, Kelsey's still there. He's probably going to be the go-to. But I really like Juju in that short route. Now, it's not say it's going to translate to a ton of yards because, like I said, they have these guys for the deep passes, and Kelsey's still that guy in the middle of the field. But in terms of a get rid of the ball quick type of guy, third down guy, I really like Juju. I think he could average like six receptions, 7 receptions per game in this offense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that look a lot. Maybe we get like a 4.5, maybe a five
Yeah.
and a half at plus money on him in week one. I think that's a really good idea. Cause yeah, like you said, they don't really need him to be stretching the field. So if him and Kelsey just kind of roam the middle of the field and take the easy targets, then you send MVS and Hardman and Sky more deep and they can get the sort of more volatile targets. So I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, especially if you're getting the same types of defensive looks you were getting last year, where you
Yeah,
were
keep the
getting
safeties as high as you can. Leave the
exactly,
middle of the field wide open for Juju and Kelsey.
exactly. So, yeah, really like him. And just to go back to the schedule real quick in terms of hopping on the Chiefs, maybe after the first 4 or 5 weeks or so. So, like you said, they have Arizona, Chargers, Indianapolis, Tampa Bay, and then the Chargers have Vegas, obviously the Chiefs, but then they play Jacksonville and Houston. And then the Broncos have Seattle and Houston to start the year. So you have these other teams that the division could get
Right.
off to a 3-1 or 4-0 type of start, where the Chiefs, not to say they can't beat these other teams, go 3-1, 4-0, but there's a chance they start out like 2-2 and you get a better price on them to win the division.
Yes, maybe we'll see if they can get like a plus 250, plus 300 a few weeks into the season and then take them. Because I know there was some people out there that did that last year because it was kind of the same scenario and the Chiefs ended up winning the division. So
Yeah. And last season, I kind of look at it as when I was saying that it looked like they had a down year. I really think it was just a product of the offense and defense not really clicking at the same time. It felt like when the offense was great, the defense wasn't great. They were letting up a ton of points. And then that stretch towards the end of the season, and when they were playing some bad teams, the defense really stepped up, but the offense didn't look great. So it was kind of a grind of a season, but they were able to grind out 12 wins. So
I
And
feel like honestly, they just had some like fluky, like I don't know if they were fluky, just like weird games. Like they had the one against the Ravens where they set up for the final field goal and the guy misses it, or there was a fumble on one. Tyreek Hill like drops a pass perfectly in his hands and it's intercepted. Like they had some weird, like really game breaking plays that were just like very out of character. It felt like they like could have at least won another 2 games last year.
yeah, there was, I don't remember what game it was. There was one or two games where they had interceptions like bouncing off of Tyreek Hill's helmet and
Yes,
all.
multiple
Yeah, it
times.
was just so yeah, like definitely some fluky things baked in there. So yeah, I am very high on the Chiefs. I like them in week 1 against the Cardinals at -3. Like I feel like early in the season, it still might be some hesitancy. No Tyreek Hill. What's this offense going to look like? But like I said, if anything, I don't want to say they take a step forward. Obviously, I don't want to underplay the value of Tyreek Hill, but I just think when you replace him with, or you have all these other options on the offense,
Yeah.
you could argue they're better than last year on offense.
All right. Sounds like we're both pretty high on the Chiefs, but no bet to be made right now. Anything left to say on Kansas City?
Nope.
All right, let's move over to the LA Chargers. Second up in this division, their win total is sitting at a flat 10, but you do have to pay -130 if you want to go over. They are +240 to win the AFC West, around -160 to make the playoffs. A lot of offseason moves here. They did lose cornerback Chris Harris, offensive tackle Brian Bulaga, and your boy Jared Primetime Cook, unfortunately no longer on the team. They did add Gerald Everett to replace Jared Cook, and then they got a bunch of big upgrades on defense. Linebacker Kyle Van Noy, defensive end Khalil Mack from the Bears, and then Patriots cornerback J.C. Jackson with a big year last year. So I think there's a lot to like on this team, especially from a talent perspective. Obviously, you have one of the most explosive passing offenses in the league with Herbert and all of his weapons, dynamic weapons. The defensive line should be really good with Joey Bosa. The secondary has tons of skill on it. The problem is that this team has had a lot of hype coming into the last season, and they kind of underperformed in a big way. I mean, they had a chance to make the playoffs, and they let down big time in the final week against the Raiders, gave away a few games down the stretch. So where are you at here? I know you're not a big buy the hype guy. Are you buying it here? Or is this a team that you think we should fade because they're getting pumped up a little bit too much prematurely?
So, question for you: what were your thoughts when like the odds came out? Did you? And it's only by a slight margin, but were you a little surprised the Chargers were in front of the Broncos with Russell Wilson, or is it kind of where you expected?
Um, I'm I don't know if I would make them in front of the Broncos. Like I don't want to spoil anything, but I kind of like the Broncos a lot this year. I guess I wasn't surprised because I feel like I just hear so much hype on the Chargers that I'm not surprised people really like
Yeah.
them. But I don't know if they necessarily deserve to be this close to the Chiefs or this much further in front of the Broncos.
Yeah, so like you said, a prolific offense, 27.9 points per game last year, 390 yards per game, both top 5 in the league. To me, there's two things. Can Brandon Staley put his ego aside and just coach a normal football game? Because the fourth
Wouldn't count
downs,
on it.
I mean, the two games that come to mind that down the stretch of the season, it was the Chiefs game and the Raiders game where there was multiple decisions to go for it on fourth down, either giving away points or handing the other team points. And it's a thing where it looks great when you get them and it doesn't when you don't get them. But there's just certain circumstances where, dude, just punt the ball or just kick the field goal. I mean, you don't have to flex on every fourth down and be like, I'm going for it no matter what. What are you trying to prove? I mean, at some point, it's just stupidity. And I know we talked about it numerous times last year. They got off to a hot start getting on all these fourth downs and stuff, but towards the end of the season, it was just getting absolutely ridiculous. And then the other question is, can the defense do a 180? Because this defense was bad last year, and I know they brought in some great pieces.
It's really just can they stop the run? Like they weren't great against a pass, but
Yeah,
they weren't terrible. But I mean, they're literally giving up like 8 yards a carry. Like you just run the ball and get a first down every time.
Yeah, the infamous Rex Burkhead game that is embedded in my mind where he rushed
I
for
can't believe that game.
I believe I called it the worst defensive performance in NFL history. And
they lost to the Texans.
Yeah. No, I don't care if they lost to the Texans. I care that Rex Burkhead rushed for over 100 yards. The guy
they
that we were
lost the game though.
I believe going into it, I said I would bet his under like 1.5 rush yards if they just posted a line. But yeah, and look, there was some other head scratching losses on last year's schedule. They lost 34-6 to Baltimore. They lost 28-13 to Denver, and then the 41-29 loss to Houston. So they brought in J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, two big ads, and with the way the offense is, you really just, and it kind of goes for a lot of these teams in the division, you really just need to get a middle of the pack defense, and I think you can be a great team. Now, within the division, you might, you got to get in that top 12-ish range to kind of separate from the pack, because I don't think the Chargers are going to have as good of an offense as the Chiefs. So maybe you make up for it if you have a little bit of a better defense. And they definitely
they could.
Yeah, maybe yeah, arguably they could, but I think defensively the Chargers have better personnel. So if
Yeah.
they can put it together, um, there's no reason, and I'm just not taking because I don't fully trust the defense yet, just because of a few rosters, and I don't trust Brandon Staley, because if you're in this division where it's going to be so tight, if you're making a couple boneheaded mistakes, even in one game that you drop because of a dumb coaching decision or something, that's a huge deal. So maybe at the end of the season, this team ends up winning the division. I'll be kicking myself because I am a big Justin Herbert fan. I can say, dude, look at this roster; they're so talented. What were you thinking? But right now, I don't want to lay the juice for them to get 11 wins. That to me is a lot to ask. It's still a young quarterback. I know it's kind of like the Josh Allen thing. Like, yeah, he had a breakout season last year. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see some consistency. They didn't even make the playoffs last year, so it's not like Herbert had this huge run and took them to the playoffs. So pump the brakes. I still think Herbert's great, but let's see it for consecutive seasons.
Yeah, I think the two things for me is kind of like you just said, the expectations and the bar that's being set here for a team that hasn't really accomplished anything. It really feels like the Eagles and the Chargers are two of the most hyped teams this offseason. And I mean, at least the Eagles made the playoffs last year. Like, I know they both won 9 games, but at least the Eagles made the playoffs. The Chargers are kind of getting all this hype. You have to win 11 games to hit the over, and like they didn't really accomplish anything last year. So I think that, and I just still have concerns on the defense. Like, there's just a decent chance in my mind that Ronaldo Hill, their defensive coordinator, might just flat out stink. Like, I think their roster was pretty good last season. They still had Joey Bosa, Kenneth Murray, Asante Samuel, and Derwin James in the secondary, and they ranked 24th in EPA per play on defense and 31st against the run. So great, they have all this talent, but like if their defensive coordinator sucks and their head coach is all offense, like they might just not be a great defense because they don't have a great scheme, because they're letting everyone run so much up the middle that they just, they're so worried about stopping the pass, and it's just clearly not working. So I think that's my issue. I do think I'm not going to bet the under here just because I could see this team having a ton of success in the regular season. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they won 10 or 11 games. I'm kind of hoping they do so that they can host the playoff game, and then we can like really drop the hammer and fade them. Because if we got the Patriots, the Chiefs, or the Bengals, a team like that as a dog against this team in the playoffs, like I would be all over that. I could not wait to fade this team in the playoffs. So that's kind of my hope. Not really going to touch them in the regular season. Could see a big regular season, and then we fade them hard in the playoffs.
You could fade them on a week to week basis. Week
one, we can definitely look at our spots. It's just hard to know if I'm going to be able to do that now because I don't know what the lines are going to be. But yeah.
Yeah, +4 against the Raiders, they're -4 against the Raiders in week 1. I kind of like the Raiders there.
Definitely going to bet the Raiders.
They're +3 in Kansas City week 2. So yeah, I mean, who knows? The Chargers blow out the Raiders, and you get maybe a possible line under a field goal. So so there's potential to fade the hype early in the season. Now, unfortunately, after the first 2 weeks, they get Jacksonville and Houston, so we'll see where those spreads are at. But there's definitely opportunity there, and if they come out and you see Vegas and Kansas City running right through the teeth of the defense and nothing's changed, then it's definitely going to be a little bit concerning. And you may have a spot where week 5 you could possibly take Cleveland and with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. So I think there's going to be opportunities here based on what we see to start the season.
Yeah. All right. Anything left to say on the Chargers?
Nope.
All right. Let's go over to the Mile High City and the Denver Broncos. Their win total is either 9.5 or 10, depending on where you're looking. The juice is a little bit different based on what number you have. +275 to win the AFC West, -140 to make the playoffs. Vic Fangio is out at head coach. Nathaniel Hackett, former Packers offensive coordinator, comes in to replace him. Obviously, the big offseason acquisition, quarterback Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. They also got right tackle Billy Turner, defensive end Randy Gregory from the Cowboys, and then the Eagles leading tackler Alex Singleton at linebacker. Couple players that they lost, obviously Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater probably won't be needing them. Tight end Noah Fant, and then a couple cornerbacks, Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller, and then they lost defensive end Von Miller during the middle of the year last year. And then one injury note, we did just find out that Tim Patrick tore his ACL in practice maybe a week ago, so he's going to be out for the season, but still a pretty decently deep receiving core. So where are you at here on the Broncos? Do you like Russ in Denver and his new look offense, or is this a team that's in for some trouble? Where do you see him?
So I think it's a dangerous team, and it's kind of a team I look at that they were just missing that quarterback. They have great weapons, like you said, a deep receiving core. They got two good running backs. Maybe not an elite defense, but I kind of like them as a potential to be the best division in the league. I think they have two solid cornerbacks. They added
Best defense in the league.
Division. Did I say league? I meant division.
Oh, best defense in the division.
Defense within the division.
Defense. I think you said best division in the league. I don't
know. Yeah, sorry. Best defense in the division.
Okay, got it.
With two solid corners on the outside, like you said, brought in Randy Gregory to rush the passer. So they have good pieces on defense, and it's a situation where Russell Wilson, as great as he was in Seattle, there was always this cloud there that they're holding him back because they were this run-first offense that, when they turned Russ loose, it's like, yeah, this dude's a top 5 quarterback, but then it's like, no, we want to run the ball.
Reel him back in. He's getting too loose. We're winning
exactly.
too many games.
It's like, exactly. So with Nathaniel Hackett coming in, I know he's a first-time head coach, but pair him, who's been with Aaron Rodgers, a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson, I think this offense can be great. My one concern is the offensive line. So they're as bad as Russell Wilson's offensive line was in Seattle last year. Denver actually allowed a higher pressure rate and allowed more quarterback hits last season. So, maybe that changes. They need some young guys to step up.
You also have to factor in who's behind center. Like, it's a little bit like, I think the stats could be a little bit skewed if you have Drew Lock holding the ball back there who has no idea what he's doing. Like, he's going to take more hits than a guy who knows how to get rid of it quick. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line's not great. I see them projected around like the middle of the pack, maybe slightly worse than that from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so despite the stats, I think it's still an upgrade from Seattle. I mean, Seattle's line has been bad for the last few years. So I think it's kind of like a similar team to the Chargers, where you could have this great offense and you really just need this defense to be a middle of the pack, maybe top 15 type of defense, and you can have a great team. And like I said, I kind of lean them over the Chargers just because I as great as Herbert was last year, Russell Wilson's still a better quarterback. I think that they're somewhat, similar, good personnel on defense with some potential, good weapons on offense. So again, no bets for me here. It's just I found a 9.5, but it was juiced to like -145, and the matchups with the Chargers, they could very well be coin flip games. They could split the game. Same thing with the Raiders, Chiefs. So there's so much volatility within these divisional matchups. It's just so hard to predict these win totals and who's going to win the division.
All right. Sounds like a pretty bullish case on the Broncos. So no bets for you.
Nah, no bets. Well, I do have one bet, but I'll come back to it. You can give your spiel.
All right. I have 2 bets here in my spiel. We're not going with the win total. We're not going with the division. I think the ceiling for this team is infinity. Give me the Denver Broncos at 17-1 to win the Super Bowl. The only team that I have bet to win the Super Bowl that's actually still has current odds, because I bet the Bucs before it changed. But I think this is the year that Russell Wilson finally gets unleashed. This is a quarterback that threw for 40 touchdowns and only 13 interceptions in his last year that he was fully healthy. What if I told you that he did all of that with Pete Carroll, like we said, actively sabotaging him in every game? I think that people think Russell Wilson is like a really good quarterback. What if he's actually incredible? What if we don't even know how good he is because he's been held in this 1940s offense in Seattle and constantly held back? I think they have the roster. They have talent on offense. I think Sutton and Judy are awesome weapons on the outside. KJ Hamler gives them some speed. Javonte Williams, I think they're going to give him more carries than Melvin this year. He's an awesome running back. We love the defense. And then Nathaniel Hackett, yes, he's a big unknown. This is a guy that's worked with Aaron Rodgers for multiple years. Vic Fangio was another terrible head coach. So I firmly believe that Hackett is an upgrade over him coming in here. And look, we've seen precedents with this over the last few years. It's kind of been like a weird scenario, but Stafford goes to the Rams last year. What happens? Oh, they win the Super Bowl. What happens the year before that? Brady goes to the Bucks. They win a Super Bowl. This year, the big quarterback acquisition was Russell Wilson. Maybe the Broncos are going to go and win the Super Bowl. So I don't think it's crazy. I think this team can accomplish anything you want them to this year. And I'm also going to go with Russell Wilson. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that's like a great comparison because you look at the Rams and you look at the Bucks.
It was kind of the same thing. They had the roster.
The guys are there. You're just missing
Yes.
that quarterback. Go ahead with your Russell Wilson MVP bet because that was my one bet too.
Russell Wilson to win MVP at 17-1. We know the narrative has been there for years. Like I said, last season fully healthy, 4,200 yards and 40 touchdowns in only 16 games. So and look, you bring in Nathaniel Hackett. Like, yes, he was the offensive coordinator, wasn't the head coach, but like, guess who he just coached? The guy that won back-to-back MVPs and Aaron Rodgers. So if there's anyone that knows how to design an offense and help orchestrate something that could win an MVP, it's Nathaniel Hackett. So I love that pairing of coach quarterback combo. I think this is the year that Russell Wilson gets it done. And the fact that you already have that narrative, like, yes, he still needs to put up the stats, but I think if it's close between him and a guy like Herbert, who's kind of up and coming, I think they would give it to Russell Wilson just because of this narrative of he's been so good, but he's never really been in the MVP conversation. He's never gotten the vote. So give me all of that. Give me all of the Broncos ceiling outcomes this year.
So I'll add a couple things to that because that was my one bet is Russell
Love it.
MVP.
Love it.
I know we didn't even talk about that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Starting with him being held back in Seattle and all that, like he has potential for better years than we've seen. But add on to that the Broncos say they come out and win this division. I mean, the quarterback who wins this division is going to have a damn
has
good
to be
case.
a front runner for MVP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's priced behind Mahomes. He's priced behind Herbert. So, you can make, if you like the Raiders, I think you take a piece of Derek Carr because it's the same situation. But on top of that, you take a team that has won 12 combined games over the last 2 seasons. If they win this division, you're then winning like you said, possibly the toughest division ever in football and a legit Super Bowl contender with the only one change on the team really being Russell Wilson. Well, obviously a new coach and stuff, but roster wise, it's like, the same core and pieces are there. You're just bringing in Russell Wilson. So add on those 2 factors. And I think some of the guys Wilson's price around and price behind, I think the value is great on him for MVP.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, Russell Wilson's going to get all the credit if this goes well. Like, people saying that Nathaniel Hackett did a good job, but like I could see, I don't know, if the Chargers have a big year, like, yes, Herbert will get credit, but like I think people will also be talking about how amazing Staley is and how in love they are with his 4th down decisions. Like, if the Broncos win 11 games, I think it's going to be 100% because of Russell Wilson, because of, like you just said, this has been a bad team for the last few years, even though we think the roster is good. What changed? It was Russell Wilson. So
yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm glad we're both on that. It's pretty awesome.
I didn't know if you were going to be in on the Broncos or not. It was kind of like the more I dug into them, I was like, I think I really want to put the stamp down on this team. This is my team. All right. Ready to go on to the Vegas Raiders?
Broncos Vikings Super Bowl. I can see it now.
Every week. We're not doing it. All right, what would you price the Super Bowl if it was Broncos?
Yeah, dude, Vikings? What is it? What is the look ahead line on Vikings?
Broncos -3, and I'm betting the Broncos. All right, the Raiders round out our AFC West division here. Their win total is at 8.5, plus 700 to win this division, and plus 180 to make the playoffs. Josh McDaniels is going to be the new head coach here in Vegas. First time coaching since he was on the division rival Denver Broncos back in 2010. Shout out to Tim Tebow. Offseason acquisitions, Devontae Adams, the big one, then defensive end Chandler Jones and quarterback Rock Ya-Sin from the Colts. They did lose Yannick Ngakoue, Casey Hayward, and Corey Littleton off on the defense, and they lost Brian Edwards and Zay Jones, some depth at wide receiver. Nothing really notable in the draft. They took a Georgia running back, Zamir White, in the 4th round, so we'll kind of see how that split between him and Josh Jacobs goes, but nothing really notable here. What do you got on the Raiders? Is this a team that can make some noise in this division, or are they clearly outclassed by the top 3 dogs in the West?
So this is like an uncharacteristic bet for me, I'd say, and I'd bet the Raiders over 8.5 wins.
You did? Wow.
And this is actually
really,
if you dive into this, it is probably one of, if not the biggest regression spot of the offseason. And I bet against it So listen to this. So the Raiders trailed.
My head is all in a pretzel right now.
Based on the regression that's coming, it should be an under bet. Now I think there's some regression baked into the line. They're at 8.5. They won 10 games last year.
So
Obviously,
you're betting on the regression.
I'm betting on the opposite of how I normally bet, is what I'm saying, which is why.
What is the opposite of regression? Progression?
Positive regression. Anyway,
okay, go on.
This team trailed in 15 out of 17 games last year.
Not good.
They were 7-2 in one-score games.
Not what you want.
They ended the season with a minus 65 point differential.
That all?
Which resulted in 6.8 Pythagorean wins. So they outperformed that by 3.2.
Just a bit.
So why do I like the over here? Well, one, I love Josh McDaniels. I love that hire. So you mentioned he was with the Broncos. He was 11-17 as their head coach. He didn't even make it through 2 full seasons, but he had a combination of Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow as his quarterback. So not really given a chance there. After that, he went to the Rams for a season as their offensive coordinator and was gifted with Sam Bradford as his quarterback and Brandon Lloyd as the number 1 wide receiver. Since then, with the Patriots, now I'm going to say these numbers, and yes, I'm fully aware Tom Brady was at the helm, so it's harder to decipher how much of it was McDaniels and how much was just the greatness of Brady. But since then, the Patriots have averaged the highest points per game in the NFL at 29.5, the highest red zone TD percentage, and the fewest turnovers. So yes, Brady is a large part of that. But let's just look at last season with a rookie quarterback, Mac Jones, at the helm. They averaged 26.6 points per game, which was 6th in the league. 7th in the league at converting on third down, top 10 in both rush and pass success rate, and number 7 in red zone scoring. So to me,
the Patriots are awesome. Talk to me about the Raiders.
So what does that mean for this Raiders team? So you're getting first of all, before I dive into that, the stuff this Raiders team overcame last year to still get 10 wins.
It was incredible.
Can't be overlooked. The Gruden situation, the Ruggs situation, Waller being injured much of the year.
There was so many times where we're like, all right, this is the end for the Raiders.
Exactly.
It just kept coming.
So despite the point differential and a couple wins that they had a ton of penalties in their favor, I think Derek Carr and this team deserve a ton of credit. So now you're getting Josh McDaniels, who I really do think is a great offensive mind, coming into this offense with a veteran quarterback, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. So I just think this is an offense with so much potential. The offensive line is the biggest question mark for me. You're going to need some younger guys to take a step forward if you want to have an average to above average offensive line. But I think with McDaniels calling plays, and you saw some of it in the Hall of Fame game, actually, which I obviously don't want to take too much away from, but I think you're going to get a lot of screen passes to slow pass rushes down and quick throws. That was what Brady and the Patriots were really notorious for, not taking a ton of sacks, getting rid of the ball quickly, taking the shots when they're there. So I think you're going to get a lot of that same situation here, and you have the personnel to do it with the weapons they have. You have 3 great possession receivers in Adams, Waller, and Renfrow, and Adams and Waller are both deep threats as well. So I think you have great weapons on the offense with McDaniels will maximize. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you brought in Chandler Jones to pair with Max Crosby, which should be a fantastic pass rush. A huge concern is the secondary. I'm not going to deny that.
Oh, yes.
They were below average last year in DVOA and success rate. Now they lose Casey Hayward. So
they're projecting starting cornerbacks are Anthony Averett and Rock Yassin.
Yes. So
you're going up against Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert in this division. How are they ever stopping anyone?
I get that. They're going to need to win some shootout games, but when you go up and down their schedule, this isn't a team that I look at any game and I'm like, oh, they're losing this game. Yes, the Chiefs have kind of dominated them over the last couple of years, but I think this is going to be a team that's in every game. And when I see 8.5 wins, I think it wouldn't shock me. And you can make a case for this being the worst team in the division, like their price, but it wouldn't shock me if they finished second in the division, just because I think these divisional matchups, we're already saying we like the Raiders in week 1 at +4. That's us saying we think there's a chance they win that game. And I do think there's a chance they win that game. So in these matchups versus these other divisional teams, for them to be priced like 2 games lower than the Chargers, I just don't think is an accurate pricing. And I think this is a above 500 team. So I took them at the over 8.5 wins.
I don't like it.
Okay.
I don't like it one bit. think you made a decent case for it, but this is just not a team that I would bet the over on. I like it. Like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they came in second division. I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division. I think they're a talented team, but for me, it's just the secondary is just a really big concern. I know they have the weapons on offense to go toe to toe in a shootout with some of these teams, but even if you're in a shootout, like just relying on Derek Carr to pull out these last second wins when he's clearly the fourth best quarterback in this division by such a wide margin is it's just a tough ask. And then like I know it's just the preseason. I know we shouldn't take too much from this, but like what are you doing, Josh McDaniels? Josh Jacobs is playing in the preseason, getting the ball on like every play. He got 7 touches. And then I get Zamir White's a rookie. Like you want to get him some game action, but then he gets 14 touches. Like, are they even going to have any bodies left by the time we get to the regular season? What is he doing?
Yeah, but that doesn't. I mean,
it's just like, do you have a brain? Like it's not like I'm gonna bet the under because of it, but I'm just watching. Like, what are you doing?
I just look at it as this Raiders team. When you watch them on a week-to-week basis, it felt like they were just winging it on offense. Like there wasn't an offensive system in place. It just with the disaster that went on with Gruden, it just felt like they were just making it up as they go on the fly. I think McDaniels is going to come in, and we saw what he did with a rookie quarterback last year. He now gets, say what you want about Derek Carr. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a veteran quarterback who's had some success in the league and took this team to the playoffs last year. And yeah, the Broncos got better, but it still wasn't a easy division last year. The Chiefs were still good. The Chargers still good. They beat the Chargers in that season finale in overtime to make it to the playoffs. So by no means was this a pushover team last year. Obviously winning 10 games, and yeah, they lost Casey Hayward, but the secondary wasn't great last season. I agree that they have potential to be worse and maybe one of the worst in the league, but there was games in there where the offense just wasn't scoring at all. I mean, 17 points or no, 15 points against Washington last year,
9 against the Chiefs,
Cincinnati at 9. It's just so the 9 against the Bears. And so yeah, there was just games where this offense fell flat. And I don't know that I see it happening as much this season with the pieces. And Waller was hurt for most of last year too. So as you know, Hunter Renfrow is a good receiver, but to have him as your number one target for majority of the season, it's you're getting a massive upgrade from that perspective.
I don't know. It just felt like a team that just won so many games last year where you're like, how are they winning right now? What exactly just happened? And then they somehow win the game. And like, yeah, they made some upgrades on the off season, but like, I just don't think that they're that much better from last year. I think this is more like a 7 to 8 win team. I'd probably bet the under if you made me bet it.
But with them at 8.5 and the Chargers at 10 and a half, it just and that to me is the hype on the Chargers. Like
8.5's a lot in this division though.
So is 10 and a half for the Chargers,
but they're a lot more talented of a team. I'm not saying I'm betting the over on the Chargers, but I would bet the under.
But this is another thing
too,
like,
but it's
this is another like, let's pump the brakes on Justin Herbert. Why are we just anointing Justin Herbert as this
he's better than Derek Carr
based on one season? Or
based on 2 seasons.
How much did he play in the first season? Not much.
15 games. Tyrod Taylor got his lungs stabbed in week 2 or whatever.
Oh yeah, you're right. You got the punctured lung from the training.
Oh, don't worry, I got you, Tyrod. All right, well, don't sit here and tell me that Justin Herbert isn't better than Derek Carr.
All I'm saying is it's not a landslide.
Derek Carr is the clear 4th best quarterback in this division.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's like I'm not going to make a case that he's better than Herbert. Certainly not Wilson or Mahomes, but yeah. I don't think it's as big of a gap as it's made out to be.
I think Derek Carr is a little underrated. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, not great. But like, look what his receiving targets were the year before.
I think he played better than his stats show last year. Like if you watch the games, I was more impressed with him than when you look at the 23 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. That's not very impressive, but he was much better than that if you actually watch the games. I agree with that.
Yeah. So look, it's not my most confident bet of the offseason. I just don't think this team is a sub 500 team. And I think there's enough volatility within the division where if they upset a couple games against the Broncos or Chargers, then they can find themselves at 9 and 8, maybe pushing for a wild card spot.
It's a team. It's just like I don't know. I just don't see any like guaranteed wins on their schedule. Like,
But I don't see guaranteed losses either. Like they're going to
no,
be.
you're right. They're kind of like they could be in any game. They could beat anyone. They could also lose to anyone. Like they're not a team that I trust to take care of business against a bad team. But they're also not a team that I ever count out. Like, oh, they could never beat the Chiefs. Like, of course they could.
Yeah. So
Interesting type of team like that.
yeah, I agree with that.
All right. If I handed you $100 right now and said you had to bet on one team to win this division, who would it be?
I'd still pick the Chiefs. I still think you're still getting plus
odds factored in, not just
yeah, odds factored
okay.
in. Yeah, I still think there's enough meat on the bone for me to take them at
plus 170.
170. Yeah, those. Yeah, so I think there's still enough there for me to take them. What about you?
Be between Chiefs or Broncos.
Okay.
See either one. Might go Chiefs just because it's a good price, like you said. Like that's pretty solid plus money for the Chiefs, but I do like the plus 275 on the Broncos too. So either of them.
All right.
All right. Any player props? Anything else you want to say here?
Nope.
All right. I have two props to run by you. I don't know if you're going to like the first one, given how high you are on the Raiders. But
all right, I already hate it.
Davante Adams under 10.5 receiving touchdowns. This is at minus 130 on DK and MGM right now. I know you're already making a face.
The odds, like I don't minus 130.
Hey, move. People bet them. What do you want from
ahead.
me? It opened to minus 115. Last 5 seasons, 11, 18, 5, 13, and 10. So obviously been a big touchdown guy, but he's now 29 years old. As much as we can say we are impressed with Derek Carr last season, this is a big downgrade at quarterback. Back-to-back MVP seasons from Aaron Rodgers. Now Derek Carr and the whole offense is a step down from what he played with in Green Bay. The last time Derek Carr threw 30 touchdown passes, way back in 2015. Like we said a minute ago, he only had 23 last season. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers threw 37 and 48 touchdown passes the last 2 years. So I think it's safe to project a high target volume for Davante Adams in this offense, expecting him to catch 30% or higher of the total touchdowns thrown, especially when you still have Waller and Renfro in the mix. Like that's just a big ask. So I think this is more of just like how many touchdowns can we realistically project Derek Carr to throw? And then from that, how many are we giving to Davante Adams? Because this number is basically saying that he's getting a ridiculously high percentage. And again, with the injury factor, if he misses time, you pretty much win. So I went under.
I don't like the odds.
You don't like? I could give you any number, and if it's minus 130, like I don't like it.
Yeah, you're taking an under on Davante Adams 10.5 touchdowns at minus 130. I don't hate the bet. I don't hate the bet. It's just laying minus 130 odds. I feel like isn't.
There's an under 9.5 at like minus 105 plus 100. If you'd prefer to go that direction,
I want to see. Like when's the last time Derek Carr had a receiver of this caliber? Is my thing. You know,
it's fair. Maybe it's why he doesn't throw so many touchdown passes.
So in the year that he threw for 30 touchdowns, Michael Crabtree had 9 touchdowns in 16 games. So
he had under 10.5 is what you're saying.
He did, but I would say Davante Adams is slightly better than Michael Crabtree. So
he did have Amari Cooper for a few years in his younger days.
He was never a huge touch. So Cooper,
I'm just saying he had a really good receiver on his team. Not necessarily a big touchdown guy, but like he did have an elite wide receiver early in his career, and he was at like mid-20s touchdowns most year.
So Cooper was there. I think this was his rookie year when Carr threw 30. So Crabtree had 9 and Cooper had 6.
It's a pretty good receiving core.
Yeah, just and Michael Crabtree was 28 years old at the time, so it wasn't a spry young Michael Crabtree.
It's not a spry young Davante Adams.
Yeah, but I'll take a 29-year-old Davante Adams over a 28-year-old Michael Crabtree.
Okay.
It's one of those bets that I don't hate it. I just don't like minus 130 for it.
Can I interest you in another?
They also already have chemistry too. Don't forget that they played in college together. So
that is the dumbest. The dumbest.
I knew that was gonna set.
I hear so many people say that. It's like, oh my god, he caught a pass from him 7 years ago in college. Like, there's so much chemistry there, as if anyone on earth remembers anything they did 7 years ago and how it could impact them right now. Like from a sense of catching a football. It's the dumbest argument. I know you're not making this. It's just like the amount of times I've heard that this offseason. Like, oh, there's chemistry there. Like, he's caught 5,000 passes from Aaron Rodgers between that last pass and this next one. Like, you think he remembers anything about Derek Carr throwing a football? My God.
Same with Hollywood Brown and Kyler. You hear it there too.
What, they played together when they were 6 years old or something? Like,
No, in Oklahoma.
chemistry from Pee Wee
Yeah.
football. They were the dynamic 1-2 punch that won the
Yeah.
Pee Wee title. All right. Speaking of minus 130 odds, I have one more prop to run by you, priced at minus 130.
Okay.
Are you a pass already?
You get dislayed on me.
I think I already texted this one to you, so I don't know what your feelings are. But Joey Bosa under 12.75
Oh yeah, you did.
sacks, minus 130 on DraftKings. He is entering his 7th NFL season. Would you like to guess what his career high sack total is?
12.
12 and a half, which is under 12.75. So right off the top, we are looking at a 7. What are you counting?
I was doing the math. 12 under 12.75, making sure that adds up. I was kidding. Go ahead.
All right. Really throwing me off here. Okay, so right off the top, we have a 7-year veteran that you were betting on to have the best year of his entire career if you're betting the over. His career high 12 and a half sack total was way back in 2017. The last 4 years, 10 and a half, 7 and a half, 11 and a half, and 5 and a half. 2 of those seasons were cut short due to injury, but in his last 2 full seasons, 10 and a half and 11 and a half sacks. The Chargers did make some upgrades on the D line. Getting Khalil Mack, you could kind of make a case that helps Bosa, or you can make a case that Mack's going to steal some of those sacks, so it actually hurts his case. I could kind of see it going either way, but I think in the end, you're betting a line that's at this guy's absolute ceiling, and this is a player that's missed 21 games in his 6-year career so far. So if he misses a few games, you win the bet. If he plays all 17, I still think you have a really good shot. This line, I get it's priced at minus 130, but this one should be 10 and a half, minus 110, both sides. I think this line's crazy.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I always think that the upgrades on the D line always help of the pass rushers. I don't look at it as like a wide receiver coming in and taking away targets. It's more, I think it opens things up more than, but again, you're betting on a guy to have this career high in sacks. So I definitely do like the under regardless.
Yeah, I mean, just think of any player that's been in the NFL for 6 years. If you set his line at like minus 130 to go under for him to have a career record in any sort of stat, like it's just should be.
What's so career highs? What is Derek Carr's touchdown passes at? Because the most he's thrown is 30 touchdowns, right? So I gotta imagine they probably
he threw 32 one year. Carr was 32. I want to say his were like high 20s. Let's see if I can find it here.
Okay, 29 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so they didn't get too carried. They didn't get too carried away with it.
Yeah, it's a little harder with quarterbacks just because there's not as many injuries.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not mobile quarterbacks. But yeah, I'd go under there if you made me bet it.
And the other prop we both have in this division to actually Jerry Jeudy. Do you still like that one?
Over?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when the Tim Patrick news came out, yeah, I actually bet him and I bet Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy both over receiving yards. I actually bet them. No, I think I bet Sutton over touchdowns and both of them over yards. They were at like 900 and then 5.5 touchdowns. So I do like that a lot.
I like Sutton as the touchdown and maybe more yards kind of guy, where I think Jeudy could kind of slide in as the possession kind of receiver.
Yeah, I can't figure out how the breakdown's going to be. Like, it's just tough to know. Like, Wilson could just have like fall in love with one of them, and then like, you know, one of them has a breakout season, the other one's kind of forgotten, or they could be kind of split up and both put up numbers. Because we saw that with Metcalf and Locke, like they both had really good seasons. It's just tough to know without seeing it. So I just kind of threw a little bit on each, thinking worst case one will hit, one loses. Best case maybe they both get volume. So
yeah, I have them both written down in my prop spots for week 1. I just don't know how I want to attack it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be like if there's a big discrepancy, just play who's ever lower over. Like if Sutton's at like 65 and a half yards, Judy's at 55 and a half, just take Judy over.
And definitely play them. I'll be playing probably them at touchdown props if they're both plus money in week 1.
Oh, right. At Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
Yep.
All right. Anything left to say?
Nope.
All right. The big question that everyone's waiting to hear the answer to. AFC South or AFC North? Where are we going to next?
I think we got to go south because who knows? Is this Deshaun Watson situation going to be wrapped up? There's still the unknowns with that. So I feel like we have to push that division to last.
It was funny. I was listening to our podcast from last week after it came out because I
Yeah,
was after the
yeah.
Watson news was announced, and I was like, "Oh, we sound like idiots saying this will never get resolved," and then it was resolved, and then all of a sudden it's not resolved
Yeah,
again. So now we look
exactly.
like again.
So yeah, I think we got to push that back till the end.
All right, so we're taking the bus. We're heading down south, taking on the AFC South next week. Our second to last division preview.
Whew.
Be back right here to break it down. Until then, check us out on Twitter at BetRightPod. Check us out on YouTube at BetRightPod. Smash the like button on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts from Jeff and Rue. We are the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast because every time you bet with us, you bet right.